In this video we're going to go at making some grass for Unreal 4. The way I'm going to make grass is pretty much the same way everyone makes grass, so it's not anything mind shattering. You can make grass two ways. You can either use Photoshop and do it all in 2D, or you can use something like Max and build it in 3D and then bake it all down, which is the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to make a blade of grass. But before I do that, I'm going to make a reference plane. So if I go to plane, get into my front viewport and box out, make this 200. 200. The size is irrelevant for now because it's just to give us what would be our texture plane that we would flatten it onto. And I'll keep those divisions in. I'm going to make this bit. I need to be in here. One. I'm going to work in this bit here, so that's fine. So I'm going to convert that to an editable poly, and we're done. The next thing I'm going to do is actually, if I just push it back in space a little bit, so that when I draw things on top of it, I'll be able to see them. And I'm going to make a box, something like that. And segments wise, it's probably about right. And I'm going to make it 80 tall. I'm going to make it 3 wide, 3 deep, and it's a good starting point. Right, I'm going to convert it to editable poly. I'm going to pull that face out the bottom, so I don't need it. I'm going to let's change the colour of it so we can actually see what's going on. Going to add some swift loops so that when I turbo smooth it, I get what's essentially the blade part of the grass along the edge. Because what I'm going to do then is, to make it more cube-like, is I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees, so that becomes our new front, our grass. I'm going to grab all of these, collapse them, so it goes into a point. Take these ones and scale them in a bit. And then the same with these ones. And these ones. And these ones. So much. I'm going to scale it in that way a little bit, and scale it in that way as well. So it's thin. This so that would be like our basic blade. I'm going to move the pivot. To the bottom of it. Doesn't have to be perfect, just close enough, that'll do. Right. So the next thing to do would be to turbo smooth. Give a couple of iterations. As you can see, I've actually got the blade part. So we can go with something like that. Now the next thing is I need to set up a shader that will get me a nice gradient along it. If I render it at the minute, we're getting it's just a bit grey really, which is not really what we want. So I've got this here, which is basically a gradient. So if I make a new one, let's add a slot I've not used. Basically, I go into Maps, into Diffuse, pick Gradient, hit OK, and if we render it, doesn't seem to make any difference. Oh, maybe actually I should apply it to the object. If we render it, it's doing something, but that's not really what we're after. So we need to change some of these values. So we need to swap these channels around. We need to get planar from object XYZ first. So if we look at that, then you can see that we're getting white through to grey, but we want it to be darker at the bottom and lighter at the tip, because we're going to use this as a mask to change the colour of the blade of grass. So I'm going to set this to white. I'm going to set this to black. And render that. That's closer to what we want. So we'll get a nice blend between what is our darkest colour and what is our lightest colour. I may attempt to make this a little bit darker, just so the dark colour comes through a little bit more. It's giving an obvious step, which I don't want. I'll just come back up a bit. And the other thing I want to do is, I think we're getting a bit too much light information in the scene, so if we just drop a omni-light, no, not a skylight in, then if we render that, we get something which is a bit more representative of what we'll actually get. I'm pretty happy with that. Go with that. Okay, so that's going to be our blade of grass, which is quite straight, obviously. So what we need to do is we need to be able to bend it. So to bend it, I'm going to use an FFD deformer, which I've got saved here, but if you just do a search for FFD, you've got 2x2, 3x3, 4x4. If we go by 3x3, then we basically get 3 sets of deformers or control points to deform it with. So if you just click on control points and then grab like this set at the top, we can actually bend our grass. And it makes sense to do this three-dimensionally as well, so that when we make the normal map it will make it a bit more interesting. So if we do something like that, try that again, then that's kind of what we're going for. But what we need is lots of these arranged, so we can make copies and change the control points. And we can take them and we can scale them to make them smaller. rotate them to make them slightly different. Basically what we're looking to do is to get a range of different grasses all along this part. Don't go above this line because we're basically using this part to build the grass from. It means that you can put different stuff in the top level map, like maybe different examples or whatever, but we're only going to, for this example, just going to use this bit. So when I come back, I'll have done that, because that's a bit time consuming.